Well, I tell you, the hits just keep on coming. So in yesterday's video, I'll just give you a brief overview of what yesterday's video guy kind of bullied me into working on his lawnmower for free. And long story, but the only thing I ever did was replace the tire. They gave me the tire, and I just took the old tire off, put the new tire on. And yesterday's video, I said it was $20, but I looked it up. I only charged them $10 for that. And so now I'm doing a complete engine repair yesterday on this mower, because I really got the impression, well, it wasn't even really an impression. It was a pretty solid idea that he expected me to fix things. So in order to keep my reputation, I worked on it and did everything he told me to do until he was completely satisfied, all day on a Sunday in the rain, fixing his mower for free. And I gave him 2 spark plugs for free. So I was pretty fed up about the manipulation of how the mechanic is obviously at fault no matter what it is, and you try to fight back. I even told him, no, you need to take this over to the certified dealer of that particular brand. You know, when you take your mowers in, Briggs & Stratton, for example, you can get certified for Briggs & Stratton. So whoever the X-Mart certified mechanics are, probably the dealer, then, you know, I told him he needs to take it to them. And the other thing about that, just as a side note, I got to thinking about this. John Deere just got sued because they're big tractors. They made it so that you could not work on them, that the farmer could not work on their own tractor. Well, they got sued, and John Deere lost, and so now the farmers can work on their own tractors. And I'm kind of wondering if that lawnmower yesterday was set up in a fashion where they made it very difficult for you to work on it. I mean, the tolerances are different than anything else, and the part numbers were all messed up, and the whole thing was kind of confusing. But that's, like I said, a side note. So yesterday, I also returned a lawnmower that was a very simple thing. He said, the belts keep falling off this mower deck. Can you fix it? And I said, well, I can give it a try. And when I was over at his house, I looked at the deck or the belt, and it was in terrible shape. It looked terrible. As a matter of fact, I still have the belt. I can come over here, and I'm going to take it back to him, is why I put it in the back of the truck. And let me get to my story, though, before you understand that. There it is. So there's the belt. It's in terrible shape. It's just all chewed up. So I got it over here, and I replaced the belt. I also noticed that the engagement handle was very loose, really loose, which also explained another problem they were having. When they disengaged the mower belt, there's a safety switch that prevents you from starting if the blade is engaged. So you can't start the engine if it's engaged. Well, when you disengage the mower belt, it didn't come all the way down. So that switch, that safety switch, never allowed you to start the engine. So that's the reason they originally called me over, was to figure out why their lawnmower wasn't starting. I popped that thing down, started right up. So with it being loose, there was so much play in it that it wasn't coming down, and then there wasn't enough spring pressure to come down and push that switch down. So I resolved that. So I feel like, you know, it was a pretty simple fix. Put a belt on. Now, when I put a belt on, the first thing I do is I turn it by hand. The full length of the belt. So the belt has to go all the way around the mower deck for me to be satisfied. I learned this lesson on the Beast when I was still, you know, the Beast I refurbished, and then I sold it. So the first belt I put on it, I put on incorrectly. I engaged it, and it cut the belt instantly. So I had to put a new belt on it. Well, I learned my lesson then. I need to check it more thoroughly before I just go off into the wild blue yonder kicking on that belt. So that's what I do now. I turn it all the way around, and then I sit here on the deck, and I engage it, disengage it, engage it, disengage it. and I let the blades come all the way to a stop. I engage it, disengage it. And I'll do that maybe 12, 15 times, just sitting there letting it run. And then I'll let it run with the blades on, 5, 10 minutes, see if it's gonna, flop off. By this time, the belt has gotten hot enough that if it's gonna do anything, you would think it would do it. And then I go and I cut grass with it. Not that I think that's gonna make a big difference, because I don't think cutting grass actually does anything. Unless you hit a stump or maybe a rock, but I don't want to hit a rock anyway. So I go down there on that patch that has no stumps, no rocks, and that way, I'm cutting it the way it's supposed to be. If you're trying to use it as a brush hog, then you're overloading the belt anyway, so that's really on you. So last summer, I actually stopped testing for a while because we were so dry here. The only thing I was doing was running around blowing up dust. There was no grass to cut. It was just bare. It was terrible. So I didn't see the point anymore after that. But with this mower here, after I tested by hand and I tested it, then I took it across the street actually, and they let me test mowers over there. And I tested it over there because I was afraid I was gonna get stuck down here because it's so wet. It's a swamp down there, where they're up on a hill and everything drains off better than it does over here. So I ran it up down, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. Everything was fine. Loaded it directly in the truck. Right after I got done, I just loaded it right into the truck. Took it over to him. She engaged it a few times. It was yesterday. So today, he calls me and says, that belt came off. My neighbor said that you put it on wrong. Well, how does the neighbor know I put it on wrong if the belt fell off? If the belt's off, what made him think it was on incorrectly? But I actually have a diagram of how to put this belt on. And he says, and the belt's shredded now. Well, on the phone, it did not occur to me what he had said. Now, every time someone calls for a customer, well, anytime anybody calls, I have it on speakerphone. That way Carolyn can listen in. I like having Carolyn listen in. That way she can also get a perspective. With me, I'm trying to keep the customer happy, and so I'm talking and the customer's talking and I'm trying to figure out what to say and all that stuff, where she can just sit there and listen to what the customer's saying. And so I like that. It's just a double check. It's kind of like having a recording of it. So she's listening in, and so I said, okay, well, I'll get another belt. And he says, well, we'll pay for it. And I said, no, this is on me. And I said, what really bothers me is your neighbor said I put it on wrong. And he said, that's not what I said. He says, the neighbor thinks you put it on wrong. Okay, that's semantics. That's all that is. That is semantics. You are basically accusing me of putting it on wrong. Whether you think I put it on wrong or I did put it on wrong, either way, it's semantics. You tried to push the blame off on me. So I'm thinking that he thinks that I've put the belt on wrong and it shredded the belt. So I said, I'll order another one right now, and when I get it, I'll come over, I'll put it on, no charge. He says, no, I'll pay for the belt. I'm like, nah, because I don't want the liability of that. So I order one, it's gonna be here in 3 days. I call him back and I say, look, I'm gonna give you your money back. I said, I don't know what's wrong with this. I don't know why it shredded the belt. And so I'm just gonna give you your money back. Oh, no, that's not right. And I said, well, he says, look, I shouldn't have said anything about the neighbor telling me that you put the belt on wrong, or think you put the belt on wrong, whatever he said. And I said, it has nothing to do with that. I don't want the liability of this. It's an old mower. I double checked it 3 or 4 times, because of how old it is. And I wanted to make sure it was right. So I'm just gonna give you your money back, and then you need to take it to a bigger company. It's got more resources than I do, because this is an old mower. I couldn't even find the spindles. If I wanted to start replacing parts on this, I don't have the ability to replace the parts. So I said, you take it over to this other company. I named the company, and he said, no, that's not what I meant. Oh, no, yeah, it's all good. And I said, no, let's just call this good, and I'll give you your money back. So I'm gonna give him his money back, my labor, the original belt, and a new belt, all for free, with the guarantee that if he has another problem, he can take it over to the other company without ruining my reputation, which he's already done. I mean, his neighbor, to me, is already thinking I've done a bad job. So the word's getting out that, okay, don't trust Rob. He can't even put a belt on. So I got off the phone with him, and I started talking to Carolyn, and she says, that's not what he said. He said the belt fell off. The neighbor said, I put it on wrong. He put the belt back on, and then it shredded. So I didn't interpret it that way. Carolyn interpreted it as, and she's right, because once I started thinking about what was said in the conversation, the neighbor put the belt on wrong, which shredded the belt. And now the guy who owns the mower wants me to fix it for free. Of course, he wanted to pay for the part. So I messaged him, I text messaged him the schematic of the belt diagram on how it goes on. I said, this is the diagram I use to put your belt on. So just so you know that, you know, I didn't just willy-nilly this. This is based on an actual Murray mower, 42-inch Murray mower. Yeah, with this part number. So he replies back, you know, I should have never said anything about the neighbor saying that you put the belt, neighbor thinking you put the belt on wrong. I know you put the belt on wrong, right, Rob? I'm sorry. Well, it's too late. I mean, he's already, you know, discussed this with his neighbors, saying that I put it on wrong. So it's already damaged my reputation. That's one guy in an area that has very little people that now doesn't like my services, and he's never used them. So this is a real concern to me. And so this morning I was pretty frustrated. I don't know exactly where I'm gonna go with this. You know, I think Carolyn's decided that, no, we're gonna stick with this. You're fine, we're doing okay. The word's out that if you just tell Rob that, you know, when he replaced that tire, it damaged the engine, he'll fix it for free. But that's not what it is. What it is they're spreading rumors about me that I've damaged things when I haven't damaged anything. I haven't done anything wrong. I put a belt on. I tightened it up and I gave it back to him. I tested it, everything tested fine. So what Carolyn and I also decided we're gonna do is I'm no longer gonna do testing by myself. When it's time to test something, I'm gonna have Carolyn come outside. She's really good about asking a bunch of questions, and they are annoying questions. They're like, come on, that's so basic. Why are you even asking that? And I even said, so what I'm gonna have you do, Carolyn, is I want you to come out, and when I'm testing, I want you to ask your annoying questions. And that way we can get everything addressed. That way you also know, see, one of the problems I have is when someone calls, Carolyn will start asking me questions. Well, did you do this? Did you do this? And so not only do I feel like I have to justify everything to the customer, I also have to justify everything to Carolyn to make sure she's satisfied that I've done everything correctly. But if she's out there and she's looking, she can know right then that I've done everything correctly because she's already asked all her questions. So when the customer calls, she doesn't have to go through her mind thinking, well, did he turn it by hand? Did he check it that way? Did he engage the mower? Did he mow with it? You know, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, one of the things I have a worry about is all the equipment that I get around here is just ancient. So one of the things Carolyn would like me to do is test ride them longer, you know, for an hour or so. My concern is that the mowers around here are so old that I'll be out test riding it. First thing, you know, you got to avoid the stumps and the rocks and all that. And, you know, we live on an area that doesn't grow grass. It grows rocks. I mean, they're absolutely everywhere. Rocks are everywhere around here. We live on a mountain. It's rocky. So, you know, you hit a rock and then you've damaged the spindle, so now you're replacing the spindle because you were testing a belt. Or worse yet, an engine blows up. I had a chainsaw that happened too. It was a 1970-something chainsaw, a Stihl chainsaw. And he asked me to change the oil pump. Now, the oil pump just provides oil to the bar, has nothing to do with the engine, it's just to the bar. So I put a new pump on it, no big deal. I started up and it instantly locked up. Just by starting it up, it locked up. So, you know, that even got me to the point where, okay, I'm not gonna work on old chainsaws anymore. That's just too risky. But it's almost to the point where it's like, well, maybe I shouldn't even work on old mowers anymore. It's just too risky. And so I'm gonna lose $40 in parts on this mower, because I gotta, I'm gonna give his money back so he can stop this rumor mill that I don't know what I'm doing. I would rather have a reputation of, if it doesn't work, then Rob's going to make it right. He'll give you your money back or whatever the case is. Versus, oh no, he's hard to work with and he won't come out and fix anything. And so this way he gets a new belt. He gets 2 new belts, one that he ringed and a new one. And I'll just subtract my labor costs, just give him all his money back. But I can't do that very often. So, I was pretty frustrated that, here I am. Yesterday I gave $10 away to work on someone's mower. I mean, what kind of excitement is that? I get to work on somebody's mower by paying them $10. That's cool. And then the same thing's going to happen now. I had to go pick up the mower, bring it back, work on it, take it back to them and so they're going to make, basically I'm giving them $40 to work on their mower. So, I got to be careful with this. This is happening too much. I'm sure somebody's going to have a suggestion out there, but I really don't know what the answer is. So if you'll click this up next box, it'll take you to a video on my other channel. I really appreciate it. Go check it out. So if I can inspire you to work through your issues so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.